Alright, I am back with another build, and today we are doing the Twin Star, as I've dubbed it. This was a build request. I was asked to do a build that somehow featured dual-wielding Morningstars. And, well, I've done that, but I've kind of cheated. You'll see what I mean when we get to the equipment section. However, I feel like I've come up with a really awesome and interesting build that I think you guys are going to absolutely love. So the way I kind of envision this character is somebody who, as I've kind of built a GIF here, I want to say that this is someone who was at Kresh Yaluk, which is the Kresh that is in this game, and discovered something that caused them to defect from Vlaakith, and are now kind of on the run from, like, the rest of the Githyanki and Vlaakith's forces. So they are somebody who's kind of like a Githyanki fugitive, which I really like, but was also kind of like one of Vlaakith's like devout followers, a kind of paladin of Vlaakith, if we will. But we'll just say that this Githyanki has found someone else to worship. So let's get into the build right away. First up, we have our first level in Paladin. Now, we're not going to be in Paladin for too long, but there is some things from it we really do want. As for your oath, it really doesn't matter. You can kind of go with any of them, including Oathbreaker. But I'm personally going Oath with Devotion because this build is definitely going to have a Radiant theme, and I feel like Oath with Devotion works well for that. But you can absolutely go with something like Oathbreaker if you want to say, oh, this person, you know, broke their oath with Vlaakith, so they're an Oathbreaker. Or maybe they're an Oath of Vengeance because they've learned something of the truth of Vlaakith. It could be anything, so they're trying to get revenge against her. It can be anything, but I'm personally going with Devotion here, but please feel free to take whatever you like. As for our ability scores, they're a little bit strange. Well, I say they're a little bit strange. They're actually pretty decent for a heavy armor paladin. We're going for 16 strength. We are going to be using the Potion of Everlasting Vigor to bump this up, and trust me, this build is a little bit ability score dependent, and we don't get that many feats with the setup I have, so you're going to want to get that potion regardless of how you feel about it story-wise. Mechanically, just grab it, hand wave the whole thing. Dexterity is at 12, we are a heavy armor build, so we don't need that much. Constitution is at 14. Again, I always would like to have a little bit more Constitution, but 14 is a perfectly fine middle ground to find, and with the levels we're going to be taking, we're going to get a decent chunk of HP out of this. Intelligence and Wisdom both at 8, we do not need them, and Charisma at 16 because it is going to be a spellcasting modifier, as this build does use spells. As for our proficiencies, you can go with whatever you like. Because I've chosen the soldier background, because that kind of makes sense for Githyanki in general, we've got an athletics and intimidation already, so our only real options are religion, insight, and persuasion, and I think I will change insight to religion, but persuasion is also a really good one. Next up, we are going to be a Paladin level 2, meaning we're going to get the main thing we came here for, Divine Smite. This is going to allow us to add radiant damage to our weapon attacks from expending spell slots, meaning that we're going to be able to deal a ton of radiant damage, which is what we want with this build. Now, as for our fighting style, since we are going to be dual-wielding, none of these really work for us except for defense. We're not going to need dueling or great weapon fighting, since we're using a Morningstar here. Those are one-handed weapons. So while dueling would work, again, we're going to be focusing on dual-wielding, so we're going to want to get the two-weapon fighting style later anyway, so we might as well take defense for the bonus to our armor class. As for our spells as a paladin, you can take whatever you like. We're not really going to be going too high with paladin, like I say, but you could still get these kind of different variants of smite if you want to, and Wrathful Smite would feel pretty on point because we are a Githyanki still at the end of the day, so we do have psychic abilities. But I would say Divine Favor, Heroism, Shield of Faith, and Bless are all super good options that I would personally pick to stay on theme, but I like Wrathful Smite there as well for the whole Githyanki thing. Now, I am going to be immediately dipping out of Paladin here, as I don't really want any of the other stuff from it, and I want stuff that we get from other classes more. Yes, Sacred Weapon would be nice, but I don't think you'd be using it that often, even if you did have it. And yes, there are some things we could get, like Sanctuary and such, but it's not really necessary for this build, so I want to grab Bard. Because Bard is going to give us a few things. Number one, it's going to give us extra spell slots that we wouldn't normally get as a full paladin, and it's going to give us a ton of useful utility spells, which will feel really good for this build. And obviously the subclass that we're going to be choosing, you can already probably guess it, is going to be super important for this build as well. So as for our cantrips, we're going to take the standard bard set for my builds. That's going to be Vicious Mockery and Friends. Vicious Mockery because it's good psychic damage, you know, we're a GIF. And Friends because, well, if we're going to be playing this fugitive GIF, we're going to want to be making as many friends, in quotations, as possible. As for your spells, I would just take the utility options, that being Longstrider, Featherfall, because those are your two kind of maneuverability spells, and we're going to want a lot of movement speed on this character. Speak with animals to be able to speak with animals, because it opens up a ton of roleplay stuff in the game and is really fun. But also Disguise Self feels rather appropriate here. Again, if we're going to be a fugitive on the run, we might as well learn how to hide our true form in order to be able to slip past those Gith-Yankee patrols. As for our starting instrument, take whatever you like. I'll just go with the violin because I quite like how it sounds. We're also going to get another proficiency here, and Deception makes 100% sense for a character like this, so we're going to go with that. Next up at Bard level 2, we're going to be getting a bunch of really useful things. You already know the drill, so I'll just go over them quickly. Jack of all trades, half of our proficiency bonus to anything we are not proficient in. Awesome. Song of Rest, a third short rest. Also awesome. As for our spells, I'm going to be grabbing Fairy Fire, because if we're basing our whole kind of shtick on light and radiant damage, then being able to cool down a light that gives us advantage on attack rolls is super on theme and works pretty well. At Bard level 3, we're going to be able to choose our subclass, and you already know the one. We are going with College of Swords. This is absolutely necessary for this build, as it is a way to get extra attack while still being a full caster for the most part, allowing us to get higher level spell slots while still being a martial fighter. It is one of the best Gish subclasses in the game, and we are kind of a Gish, but we have more of a focus on melee combat. But this is going to give us a few things like the Blade Flourishes, allowing us to deal extra damage and get a certain effect, that being Slashing Flourish melee for attacking 2 enemies at once, Defensive Flourish melee for being able to increase our armor class by 4 if we hit, and we will also get Mobile Flourish, allowing us to knock an enemy away from us and teleport towards them afterwards. These all cost Bardic Inspiration, so you'll be able to do this around 4 times per short rest once we're done. We can also grab a level 2 spell at this point, and I'm going to recommend Phantasmal Force. It does psychic damage by default, which is on theme for GIF, but also it deals the last type of damage that you dealt to the enemy that is affecting it, meaning that this can be radiant damage, so it works for both sides of the coin. And as I said, we're going to be getting our fighting style, and since we're going to be dual wielding, we're going to want 2-weapon fighting. This means we're going to be able to add our ability modifier to the damage of attacks we make with our offhand weapon. Awesome. Next up at Bard level 4, we are going to be getting a feat. And now you can choose to take this now or later, it's entirely up to you, but I'm going to be taking it now. We are obviously grabbing dual wielder. If we want to dual wield Morningstars, this is how we do it. You can use 2-weapon fighting even if your weapons aren't light. Good. You get a +1 bonus to armor class while wielding a melee weapon in each hand. Good. Meaning that we're just going to get a bit of a bump to our armor class and the ability to dual wield Morningstars, which is what we want to do. As for our cantrips, pick whatever you like. We can go with Mage Hand because it's on theme. And now, again, this is where the spell list gets a bit muddy. There's not really too much that I actively want to grab, but if we want to stay on theme with the whole psychic theme, we can go with Hold Person because it is a really useful concentration spell. That is going to allow you to hold a humanoid enemy still. They cannot move, act or react, and attacks from within 3 meters are always critical hits. Pick an enemy and beat them down. Next up at Bard level 5, we're going to be getting our Font of Inspiration, meaning that our Bardic Inspiration now recovers on a short rest, meaning we can use those Blade Flourishes more often. We also get improved Bardic Inspiration, meaning our Bardic Inspiration die increases to a D8, which is awesome. We're also going to be getting level 3 spells at this point, and again, there's nothing that truly speaks to me here, but you can get anything standard, like you can get Enhanced Ability if you want those better ability checks, if you want Hypnotic Pattern or Fear for those psychic checks you can. It's entirely up to you. I might just go with Shatter, because believe it or not, that is actually going to be on theme, but we'll get to that later. We get a little bit of thunder damage in this build. That's a treat. And at Bard level 6, total level 8, we are finally getting extra attack. Now I can justify getting extra attack a little bit later than average for most characters, because if we're going with dual wielding, you can technically get extra attack on this build as early as 6th level, which would have been the same for a straight swords bard anyway, because you can attack once with your main hand and once with your bonus action, and we're not using our bonus action for much with this build, other than just attacking, so it absolutely made sense to kind of go with that here. But now we can attack up to 3 times, twice with our main hands and once with our offhand with this build. We're also going to get things like Counter Charm, allowing us to resist being charmed and frightened a bit more easily, which makes sense for a build like this. And we also are going to get another spell, and again, it's entirely up to you what you pick here. I probably will go with something like Fear, just because I quite enjoy that spell, and I think it's going to be quite fun, and I think it does work well. Did I say thumb as in like a finger? I meant to say fun. Whoops. Now, we are going to be leaving Bard for, you guessed it, Rogue, and you already know why we're doing this. Now, we're not using finesse weapons, so we're not going to be able to get a lot out of sneak attack, but that's not what we're here for. We also are going to get 2 expertise and a skill proficiency. I'm thinking we're going to want expertise. I mean, we're a bard and we don't have performance proficiency, so we can grab that here. I also want religion expertise because it feels right for this character, even though our intelligence isn't that high. I think it makes sense to have it be that way. And, I don't know what else I'd really pick up here for our expertise. I guess it would make sense to grab either intimidation or performance, but I'm going to go with intimidation. Yeah, we got a good set of skills there. Next up at Rogue level 2, we are going to be getting the ability to dash, disengage, and hide as a bonus action, dashing being super important. In fact, if you don't care so much about the Divine Smite, so you want to get that kind of like double bonus action earlier, you can go with the Rogue levels first, but I wanted to get the spell slots first, and I can speak from experience that this setup does work quite well. At Rogue level 3, we're going to be getting our subclass, meaning we're going to be getting the Thief, meaning we're going to be getting a second bonus action, meaning we can now attack 4 times per turn, 2 times with our main hand, and 2 times with our offhand, which is super good. And finally, at Rogue level 4, we are going to be getting our final feat of the build, meaning we can make an ability score improvement and bump up that charisma to 18. If you cared less about the spellcasting with this build, like maybe you mainly took utility spells, you could leave this alone and pump your strength straight to 20, a total 20 with the Potion of Everlasting Vigor. It's entirely up to you. In fact, if you feel like you only took utility spells and nothing that really requires like saving throws or concentration, you might not even need to have that higher charisma and be able to put it into other stuff, but I feel like just having an even split between charisma and strength is good enough for now, especially when this build does a ton of damage anyway. You'll see what I mean. And that is the build. Now, with this build, you're going to be getting a lot of interesting things, namely your high Divine Smite damage, your blade flourishes for extra options when you're attacking, and a whole bunch of different utility spells that are going to help make the game a lot easier to play. So you get things like Featherfall and Longstrider, which are going to make you faster and able to traverse the map a lot easier. Disguise Self to be able to get amazed, and yeah, so Disguise Self and Speak of Animals to be able to get a ton of interesting roleplay options and ability checks throughout the game if you so choose. And just in general, playing as a Githyanki is one of the most interesting roleplay options anyway. I think next time I fully play through this game, I'm gonna play a Githyanki because they're super interesting to play as in this game. And then obviously you get a ton of things like you get your Paladin features and such, but none of this really matters compared to the equipment. So, let's get into it. I want to actually make it so the inventory is... Yeah, I want to see our character actually on screen because this is going to look badass. So, remember at the start of the video when I said I cheated? I did. We're using the Blood of Lathander in our offhand. Now, look at... Okay, yes, it's technically a mace. Its weapon category is mace, but look at this stupid thing. It's a Morningstar in everything but like weapon category. It looks like a Morningstar. It functions like a Morningstar. It's a Morningstar. Just it has slightly less damage, but which is kind of offset for the fact that it's a legendary weapon. So anyways, we have a Morningstar in our main hand, that being the Sacred Star. And the order of which hand has what weapon is important here, and I'll get to why in just a second. So our first weapon is the Sacred Star. You can obtain this in Act 3, pretty much right at the start, but obviously you can just use the Blood of Lathander as your main weapon until that point, because, well, you get that pretty early on. You can get that as early as Act 1. Anyways, what this does is, it has Radiant Strike. On a hit, inflict 1 turn of Radiating Orb upon the target. For those of you who don't know what Radiating Orb does, the affected entity has a -1 to attack rolls per remaining turn. It also sheds a bright light in an area around it. This is going to really help deal with those shadowy enemies and such like that, as well as being able to make it harder for enemies to hit you. We also have Sanctified Weapon. Undead creatures struck by this weapon are possibly turned, meaning you get that little bit of cleric action here. It's a +2 weapon and it has the Tenacity feat when it's in your main hand, which is one of the reasons why we want it here. When you miss an attack, you deal 3 bludgeoning damage anyway. pretty darn good. But here's the kicker, we also get Dawn Burst Strike. Deal additional radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus. On a hit, light erupts around you in a 3-meter area. Enemies in the light must succeed a DC 13 Constitution saving throw or be blinded. And for those of you that don't know, blinded means the enemy has disadvantage on attack rolls and its range of attacks and spells is reduced to 3 meters. Attack rolls against blinded creatures have advantage. Meaning that with this attack, you can do a lot of interesting things. You can make it so it's way easier to hit your enemies and also harder for them to hit you. But I'm not done yet because we have the Blood of Lathander. This gives us a few really interesting things. It's a +3 weapon. It gives us the Sunbeam spell. This is a level 6 spell once per long rest. And unlike with the Dawn Burst Strike on the Sacred Star, which you have to have it in your main hand to get, you can have this, you get Sunbeam whether it's in the offhand or the main hand, so it makes sense to have the Blood of the Thunder in the offhand and the Sacred Star in the main hand, so you get everything both weapons have to offer. Lathander's Blessing. Once per long rest, when your hit points reduce to 0, you regain 2d6 hit points, and allies within 9 meters gain 1d6 hit points. Good. Lathander's Light. Sheds holy light in a 6-meter radius. In combat, fiends and undead standing in the light are blinded. Awesome. Unless they succeed a Constitution saving throw. Now here's the thing. This means that if you walk into an enemy, if you walk next to an enemy and they become engulfed in the light from either of these weapons, that means they're being inflicted a condition. Basically, if an enemy comes near you, they are in Lathander's Light, they will get a condition placed upon them, that making this a condition, which is, I keep saying condition, which means stuff is going to get important. That's going to be really important for our equipment that we're going to use in a minute, so let's get into that. We have the Diadem of Arcane Synergy. When you inflict a condition, you gain Arcane Synergy for 2 rounds. Basically, because of Lathander's Light, you walk up to an enemy, and you just get this. And if for some reason that doesn't work, you just bop them once with the Sacred Star, inflicting Radiating Orb upon them, and you get Arcane Synergy anyway. So so I think it might just be Fiends and Undead if you walk next to them, because obviously I tested this mainly on Fiends because I tested this on the tutorial boss. They immediately just get a condition for being near you, but even if they don't, you can just bop them once with the Sacred Star and immediately inflict a condition on them, meaning that you're going to have Arcane Synergy up basically all of the time. As for your cloak, it doesn't really matter. I've just gone for the Mantle of the Holy Warrior to give us Crusader's Mantle, meaning that any nearby allies also have their weapon attacks deal an extra 1d4 radiant damage. It's not 100% necessary, but I felt like it fit for this build. We have the Protective Plate. Now, this is quite an easy bit of heavy armor to get, but I wanted to show off because it looks freaking awesome, and I've not used it before. But it also just gives you resistance to necrotic damage for free, which is awesome. We absolutely want this. It makes sense to have resistance to necrotic damage when we are a radiant build. And this is called plate armor because this is like for slightly different naming convention, but it is protective plate. You can look at the wiki. Obviously, I'll have a link in the description. It's just different. It's just named differently because of the mod I used to add things. Now, we've gone with the Gloves of Belligerent Skies and Boots of Stormy Clamor combo. The Gloves of Belligerent Skies, because we're doing radiant damage, is going to allow us to inflict 2 turns of reverberation upon the target. Awesome. Reverberation, for those of you that don't know. The affected enemy has a -1 penalty to strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws per remaining turn. Awesome. When the entity has 5 or more turns of reverberation, it takes 1 to 4 thunder damage and possibly falls prone. So this basically means that for just doing what we would normally do, dealing radiant damage, which we're pretty much always going to be doing with or without Divine Smite, you're constantly going to be inflicting reverberation, and this stacks with the Boots of Stormy Clamor. When the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature, they also inflict 2 turns of reverberation, meaning that if we just attack with the Sacred Star in our main hand, no Divine Smite, no nothing, we are both doing radiant damage and inflicting a condition twice over, because reverberation and Radiating Orb are both conditions, meaning you're going to get 4 turns of reverberation off the boots, and then another 2 off of the Gloves of Belligerent Skies, meaning you're instantly going to get that extra bit of thunder damage, potentially knocking your enemy prone, and then can do it immediately all over again, continuously attacking and continuously getting off Radiating Orb. You're going to see in the combat footage that this goes absolutely insane. We're also working with the spell Crux Amulet, just because we only have up to level 4 spell slots and we only have 1 of them. It would be nice to effectively have 2 for those high level Divine Smites. I've also gone with the strange conduit ring because since we can concentrate on spells like Fairy Fire or Wrathful Smite or even Fear or Hold Person or Phantasmal Force, we might as well get a little bit of extra psychic damage out of that. It makes sense for a gift, so I picked it up. And also the Callous Glow Ring. The wearer deals an additional 2 points of damage against creatures that are illuminated. Again, with the Blood of Lathander in our hands, anybody near us is illuminated, meaning you're always going to get that bonus radiant damage. I think it's meant to be radiant damage. I thought it was just additional 2 points of damage. I'm pretty sure it's radiant damage. Double check the wiki. I'll put, again, links are always in the description. And I forgot to put a bow here, but the obvious choice would be the Darkfire Shortbow. That is going to give you haste, which means you're going to be able to do many more attacks per turn, resistance to fire and cold damage, and also would have a ranged attack allowing you to use the ranged flourishes. In fact, you know what? Can I get that right now? No, I'm gonna leave that. Unfortunately, I don't have it in the combat footage either, but you're going to see that this build shreds even without haste. But if you had haste on this build, oh boy. Again, all links are in the description. So yeah, that is the build. This is probably one of the coolest builds I've ever made. The theming of, like, you know, you kind of get this, like, a star and the power of the sun, which I guess is another star, makes this super, super powerful. Overall, you're going to get a ton of radiant damage, even without Divine Smite, but with Divine Smite, holy Jeebus. Or Holy Lathander, I guess. I mean, is this like a Lathander deity build? I mean, if you wanted to consider this my Lathander deity build, I mean, it certainly works, at least I think so, but I mean, it's not really looking into the lore of Lathander, so I'm personally not going to consider it that. And I've done a couple of builds with the Blood of Lathander, the other one being my Priest of Balance, so take any of those whichever way you want. But honestly, I really, really like this build. It is super powerful, super fun. Would be really fun to roleplay with the whole idea of a fugitive Gith, getting their hands on the Blood of Lathander and betraying Vlaakith, and getting a whole bunch of interesting dialogue options that way if you kind of follow Lae'zel's betrayal questline. There's so many different things you could do with this, and the combination of the status effects and the kind of cool theming, I think, really makes this build super, super fun and powerful. So let's get into the kind of end of video stuff now, and I owe you all an apology. I had a bit of a whinge yesterday. For my American viewers, that means I was bitching about something on my community post. My past few videos did not perform well. Basically, each of my builds kind of since what was the one I posted on Wednesday? I think it was the acid build, yeah, or the one before that. I think since my acid build came out, which I jokingly made into Walter White at the last minute, the views on those videos were kind of getting lower and lower as I released them, and it got to the point where I released my Devil and Popular build from Sunday, and it got like half the views of even my lowest performing video from this week, and I was just like, I was feeling a bit demotivated, but I was like, okay, something must be going on here. Either I'm doing something wrong, or YouTube's doing something wrong. So I kind of had to ask, like, okay, did you guys actually like kind of care about that video or not? And a lot of people were just like, oh no, we still like your videos, but that particular video didn't really interest us. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. It was my own personal build that I wanted to make, and it didn't really hold a lot of people's interest because there was a couple of niche characters. And you know what? You guys gave me some seriously cool constructive feedback about kind of like, you know, how I should be doing my videos. Like, because I even tried a new style of video there, and most of you guys were like, this could work, but you kind of need to refine it a bit, or I kind of like your old style more, so I went back to it for this video. And again, you guys were all super constructive. It was super nice of you guys, and it actually helped me, even though, again, the video didn't perform as well. You guys kind of giving that constructive criticism kind of bolstered me and like made me want to make this build as the best I could. And again, I think I've done a really good job here. And so I really appreciate you guys giving me your feedback on that. That was super, super appreciated, and I will be doing better from now on. And I apologize for bitching about it, having a whinge. I was just feeling a little bit demotivated. I'd had a very stressful and busy weekend, so I was kind of like at the end of my rope anyway. But anyways, excuses cannot be made. I apologize for kind of putting that all on you guys, but you guys took it really well. As for the kind of stuff that's coming up in the future, I'm getting close to 2,500 subscribers, which is freaking awesome. Looking forward to that. And I think, as I am kind of growing a bit bigger, I feel like, and again, this whole thing with kind of like the lower performing videos gave me some time to kind of really think about this. I'm curious, if I was to, and this is just kind of a, this isn't like a near future thing, but if I was to make videos either doing things other than Baldur's Gate 3 builds, as maybe builds for a different game, or, you know, just a different kind of video entirely, maybe like I do a different kind of video still about Baldur's Gate 3, or I could just do different kinds of videos entirely. I mean, I've done different videos before. If you go through the old history of my channel, you'll see them. So I was curious if there's anything else you guys would want to see me take a crack at, let me know. Because, I mean, not that I'm really getting bored of doing build videos, I'm still loving this, but it's not gonna last forever. So I figured I might as well get some ideas in the honeypot now, just to kind of see, you know... Honeypot, that's not the fucking expression. Ignore me. But basically, I kind of want to just get some ideas in the hat. There we go, that was the right one. To kind of see where I could potentially go with this channel in the future. Again, I'm going to keep making build videos for the time being, but getting some interesting ideas now would actually be pretty fun. And as for, I think for the rest of this week, like I say, my Friday build, which is going to be my next deity build, is going to be Ledugar, I don't know how to pronounce his name, the Dwagar god, so look forward to that. And I think I'm going to continue to fulfill build requests throughout this week. I'm probably... As far as build requests go, I'm probably going to be doing less builds that are about specific characters from certain franchises. I kind of prefer to do characters that are just more like concepts that I can then turn into characters that I can visualize. So like when people send me requests for like, you know, like somebody said, oh, so somebody, can you make like, this is just a recent one that I saw, can you make like a shinobi? And I'm just like, oh, okay, you know what, that actually sounds fun. But like, do you mean like the ninja type deal, or like whatever Naruto is, like an anime type deal, or are we looking more like actual historical shinobi with like, or maybe like a stealth assassin type, you know, stuff like that, where there's a lot of room to kind of like mold it into something. I really, really like those types of build requests. Don't get me wrong, it's not like my character build requests still do bad. The Kirito video is actually one of my fastest growing builds popularity wise, and that came out on Monday. And the Asuna build is not too far behind that now because it kind of got a second wind. So it's like, I can still do character builds, but I prefer to do character concepts that I can turn into characters, if that makes sense. In fact, my next build tomorrow, I was kind of looking through stuff for this build, and I found a racial feature that I really want to try building around. So you're going to see an interesting build tomorrow that isn't really a build request, quote-unquote, but is something that I think is going to be really fun. And also then some build requests on Wednesday and Thursday, and then a deity build on Friday. And then this weekend, if I'm not busy, I might be busy, I don't know. Schedules change, we are human beings after all. We might be able to do something fun. I might do another duo build, but again, it probably won't be a character build, it'll probably be something else that I've got cooking in the oven. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. Again, thank you all for sticking with me on this one, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.